Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a review for Marvel Zombies Black, White, and Blood number 4. This is the last issue of this series. Let's really quickly take a look at the creative team, then we'll dive a little bit deeper into their actual stories. So we have 3 different stories by Steve Skroce with Brian Reaver on art, Stephanie Phillips with Danny Earls, Mary Sanginovi and San Giovanni, Stephanie Landini, and Espen Grutengern with Martin Biro as the editor. So we'll get deep into each of the stories, but let me give you a quick synopsis for this last issue. Few survivors remain who will make it out alive. 3 more sagas from the front lines of the Marvel apocalypse, the final desperate remnants of humanity in a Marvel universe full of horror. Blade makes his last stand in the evil Stark, dangerous polar north. A lone Punisher faces down a horde, and the decision that very well may be his last, and Shanna the She-Devil battles in the Savage Land, an onslaught that can only be described with 2 words: zombie dinosaurs. What more can we say? What more do you want out of a comic book? Don't miss out the bloodiest installment yet. Uh, yeah, we have 3 really strong stories. They all have um, funny enough, I think the Blade story is the one that's a little bit more hopeful, even if it starts very grim. No pun intended, but Ben Grimm is definitely part of that. So let's talk about that story first. This is the Strange Ass Bedfellows by Steve Skroce and Brian Reaver. Uh, I first of all, Steve Skroce, like he's a fantastic writer, artist, creator. uh, and it's really cool to see his unique take in this world of the Marvel zombies. I really love the revelation of like how most of the heroes are now kind of gone because of the zombie apocalypse. So Blade must turn to the things that he's fought his whole life, right? And I'll kind of leave it at that. I don't want to go too deep into details, but it's very interesting the way the story develops. There's a lot of really cool fights. I think Scrooge's art really fits the aesthetic that you want in a gritty, war torn apocalypse landscape. So that's very, very cool. The next story is Last Man Standing. This is the Punisher story by Stephanie Phillips with art by Danny Earls. I think this one had my favorite art of the 3. As much as I love Scroce's art, this one just had something. I think it's probably the coloring that I feel like the use of the red tint inside of this, like the nuclear base or wherever Frank is going, trying to respond to a call for hope and maybe a solution to this world. Of course, Frank has never been one to really go out there and try to save the day, but Stephanie Phillips just finds a way to really bring this character to make it feel like Frank, but but also maybe give us a little bit of a twist towards the end. So very interesting stuff. A lot of really cool bloody battles because it is the Punisher taking on zombies. But I think the end of this one, just the way that Frank has to pretty much make a decision, really really work. Really fun story, and it kind of heartbreaking. I think all these 3 stories, they just get sadder and sadder as we go into the issue. So the last one I'll talk about, and this one was probably the one I was the least knowledgeable about because I forgot who Shauna was. Shauna of the Dead, great number, like just fantastic name. By Mary San Giovanni with Stefano Landini on art, Espen Grutengern on colors, and letters by Clayton Cowles. We are in the Savage Land. You have zombie dinosaurs. I love how clean the line work is on this one, as opposed to the previous 2 stories where we have a lot of big, like, let me go back and show you, like, just a lot of grit, heavy lines, heavy inks, a lot of coloring, like, a lot of different shades. Whereas this one is just very clean, very straightforward. It it reminds me a little bit of some of those old publications, like just some of those old comics that, because they were black and white and they were trying to be conservative, it's just very clean line work, and I really enjoyed Landini there. Uh, this one is just like, what do you do when dinosaurs start kind of doing everything? Like there's a lot of, you get to see, I think it's Kazar and his tiger, and the story just gets sadder and sadder as you go by, and the conclusion is just heartbreaking. So yeah, really cool stuff. I really enjoyed all three of these stories. I was able to pick up the Shauna variant cover. You'll see that at the end of the video, along with some other stuff. So yeah, I hope Marvel revisits this idea again, because I love the anthology format. I love revisiting and giving creators just so much freedom to express how they see a possible Marvel Zombies universe. And of course, because there are very few rules and restrictions, they really get to push the envelope in some of these things. But overall, I think all the creators have really captured the essence of how those characters would react in that situation. So yeah, very fun. It's going to be a great, when this is together, either in the Marvel Unlimited app or on the trade. Highly recommend you pick up all four issues, however you want to. And stay tuned in the channel. We'll definitely talk more about different Marvel books as they come out. We love these anthologies, so we'll keep up. We'll keep up with this in the future. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Fall of the House of X #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Gary Duggan, with art by Lucas Wernick, colors by Brian Valenza, letters by Clayton Cowles. In this book, Krakoa has just begun to fight. Mutant kind had never had a greater fall. From the heights of Krakoa, their own glorious nation, a place where they felt safe and happy, to the lowest of the lows, outlawed, hunted, killed, and most of their kind missing and or dead. And now one of their greatest leaders, Cyclops, is on trial facing the death penalty. Ready or not, the time has come for the X-Men to make their final stand against the forces that have struck them low. The day is now, the place is here, the tale of the house that Xavier built will be long told, and few will forget the darkest chapter. From writer Gary Duggan and artist Lucas Wernick comes half the story that will bring the Krakoan Age to its conclusion. So, as with the original House of X Powers of 10, we will have two books going on at once, telling the story of how we close out this chapter. So, I'm very excited because I've been a really big fan of this Krakoan era. And this is gonna be almost kind of like the first time that I see a whole X-Men run to a conclusion. Um, so yeah, very excited to get into that. Very excited to uh, find out what's gonna happen to most of the characters we've been following around, most of the series. The mutants have never been in a place like this, from what I can remember. So it'll be very interesting to follow along with this story. Of course, Lucas Wernick is a fantastic artist. Let's look at some of the preview art so you can see exactly what I'm talking about. I love Lucas Wernick's designs. I just think they look very cool, very dynamic, and of course, killer art. I love the claws just coming out here, all full metal. Very cool stuff. I'm very happy of the team that we have going on in this book. Not only the characters that are appear to be on screen, with Colossus and Wolverine, of course, with the fastball special, but also with the actual creative team behind the book. So we'll definitely be talking about the other half of this book next. It should come out next week, from what I see in the calendar. So that'll be really fun. We'll definitely be talking about this. Probably do a couple of videos or maybe talk about it during our live streams about the fall of X. So hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Vengeance of the Moon Knight #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. completely new series. Let's take a look at the creative team. This is written by Jed McKay with art by Alessandro Capuccio, colors by Rachel Rosenberg, letters by Corey Petit, a plethora of variant covers that we'll see towards the end of the video. Stay tuned for that. So, this is the continuation of the Jed McKay run. Moon Knight just finished last month. We have a couple videos about that on the channel. I'll link them in the description of this video. So, spoilers if you haven't finished the last run of Moon Knight. Moon Knight is dead. Mark Spector is dead. And now Reese is taking up the lead of the Midnight Mission along with everyone else. So here we are. It looks like we're going to be at a funeral. So let's see what's going to happen in this issue. Clad in the black of mourning, the Midnight Mission remains. But who's left to keep the faith? And how have they been changed by the Black Spectre's master stroke? The next chapter of Moon Knight starts here as the congregants of the Midnight Mission pick up the pieces and carry on the mission and find themselves with a mysterious new enemy in an eerily familiar vestment. So, that's right. As you can see in the cover, we're getting a character that looks an awful lot like Moon Knight. So let's see. I'm very excited because I really love what Jed McKay's been doing with the character, with this world. Alessandro Capuccio's art just has been so good. There's Federico Sabatini and Alessandro Capuccio. Both of them really drove most of the run, for with the exception of a few one shots and a few tangential tie-ins and stuff like that. So I'm very excited to see what the team puts together going forward. So let's take a look at some of the preview art here. As you can see, we're at the Midnight Mission, of course. Funeral attire, although I do love that Cap shows up in his normal garbs. We have Clea and Doctor Strange also showing up in their usual garbs, but of course the Thing, a good boy that he is, dresses up because he's very respectful. So it's interesting to see. I think we're gonna see what kind of relationships Moon Knight had left with some of these characters. As you can see here, we'll kind of go maybe through memory lane. But I'm very excited to see how the Midnight Mission comes forward. We also have a really cool design of this new character that will be probably carrying out this vengeance of Moon Knight. It just looks super rad. Of course, very reminiscent of Moon Knight. A new weapon that seems very interesting. I don't know the name, but I know I've seen it in some anime characters, specifically Bleach, carrying something like this. So, yeah, definitely very interested to see what's going on here. As we know, if you have read Moon Knight, the previous iteration, Khonshu, because he is locked away in Asgard, he doesn't have the ability to resurrect his fist anymore, right? He had one last in him, and he used it to bring back Hunter's Moon in the last run. So Mark Spector is out of luck. So this will be really interesting to find out who is this new character, what's going on, what do they even want. Of course, like I mentioned, some really cool covers, including one by Greg Capullo, who has been doing a lot of variant covers, and I'm just loving to seeing. I'm just loving seeing more Greg Capullo art. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Miguel O'Hara, Spider-Man 2099, number 1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written by Steve Orlando with art by Devmaya Pranamic. Apologies if I mispronounced that. Colors by Raul Angulo, letters by Corey Petit, and a really cool cover by Nick Bradshaw. I knew the art looked very familiar. I just wasn't sure if it was Bradshaw until I dove deep into this. So I'm very excited. I like Steve Orlando. I like the creative team. As far as I am not very familiar with the artist, but other than that, I do like what the creative team's been working on in the previous months. And I'm also a big fan of Miguel O'Hara. He's my favorite Spider-Man. So let's see what's going on in this one. In this issue, beware, Marvel Zombie 2099. Miguel O'Hara teams up with Blade 2099 to take on a new horrific threat to Nueva York. Introducing Marvel Zombie of 2099. He lives, he strikes, and no spider can hold him. Will Spider-Man be able to stop this ever-evolving zombie infection before it takes hold of his mother and the citizens of the barrio? So I actually haven't read many 2099 titles that take place in the future. A lot of what I've read from Miguel has actually been him coming to the past or the present, I guess you call it. Uh, so I'm very interested in this. Steve Orlando's been doing a few things with the 2099 universe as well, and I think introducing the Marvel Zombie Horde to this timeline can be a lot of fun. I think Steve Orlando has a good style when it comes to some of these more horror theme or horror, like, with a little bit of horror intertwined into the books. But of course, with the superheroics, Steve Orlando coming off of a great run on Scarlet Witch, which I really enjoyed. So I'm very much looking forward to this. So let's take a look at some of the preview art so we can get introduced uh, to the artist. And I can see their work looks great. So, like from what I see in the preview pages, I love the darker tone of a lot of these panels, including Miguel O'Hara's outfit. Like normally, you get to see a little bit of a brighter blue, but just because of the tone of this book, I assume we're going to see a lot more of a dark tone here. Of course, the introduction of this Marvel Zombie 2099, so that'll be really fun to follow around. And of course, working with Blade 2099 should be fun. I think that's a new character that's been introduced very recently as well, so that'll be fun to follow around as well. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for this one. There's a lot of number ones coming out this week for Marvel, so there's plenty of me to dive into. So hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Beware the Planet of the Apes #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics and 20th Century Studios. This book is written by Mark Guggenheim with art by Alvaro Lopez. So let's take a look at what's going to happen in this issue. Into the Forbidden Zone. In a hostile world run by aggressive gorillas, scientists Cornelius and Zira are the only apes alive who see the value in the mute, dumb human race. But even they know human capabilities have severe limits. So when their nephew Lucius goes missing, it is with great trepidation that they turn to a human ally, a young woman who will someday earn the moniker of Nova. Steeped in a love for the classic tales, Mark Guggenheim and Alvaro Lopez series will take the Planet of the Apes legacy to explosive new heights and all it starts. So it appears to me that this is a prequel story to the classic, the Charleston Heston Planet of the Apes film, which I'm a big fan of. I haven't seen any of the other older ones. I've only mainly seen the newer stuff, but I'm glad that Marvel's kind of taking all these movies and expanding, right? The previous series, the previous Planet of the Apes series, was more tied into modern the modern timeline. It kind of bridges a few gaps in there between the first and second film, if I remember correctly. So it'll be really cool to dive into this world and see what the apes were like before we first met them on the movie. So let's take a look at some of the preview art. Alvaro Lopez is a fantastic artist. I think that Lopez manages a good medium between trying to appeal to the photorealistic look without having to actually go photorealistic, right? I think a lot of these things, especially the apes, you can very much tell who they are supposed to be, or at least the style, kind of recapture from the '60s film, but kind of brought to the modern age. And of course, just seeing the apes, the human relationships. There's not a lot of dialogue here from the humans because, of course, they don't really have speech. So I'm very, very excited to get into this one. So uh, there's also a lot of really cool variant covers. I think Marvel went all out for this one. They've been doing a lot of really cool stuff with some of their film franchise properties, like Star Wars and Planet of the Apes, and of course the Alien Predator stuff. So I'm very excited to see what I can pick up at my shop when this is out. Hello everyone, Dan here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Marvel Meow #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics, written with art and colors and letters by Now Fuji. So let's talk about this issue a little bit. So as you know, Marvel has been doing some really cool stuff over at the Unlimited app. So in this issue, Marvel Meow makes its possum print debut. I didn't write any of those puns; those were all from Marvel's own PR team. Marvel's most fearsome and furriest heroes are here to save the day and beg for treats in the process. Follow Chewie, Leho, Alpine, and the rest of the Avengers' feline friends as they cause a few catastrophes. Oh boy. And maybe vanquish some villains in the process. Whether it's crashing Captain Marvel's apartment or defeating Dr. Octopus, you can always count on these cats for some cute chaos, collecting the hit Infinity comic series from Marvel Unlimited and also featuring a brand new cover and an exclusive story. So there you have it. Yeah, as I mentioned, this debuted in the Marvel Unlimited app fair as one of those Marvel Infinite comics that you kind of scroll up. So I find it very interesting when Marvel brings these to the page because you can't just really print out what's already there, right? You have to rearrange a lot of these things. um, Comics and those infinite comics, and kind of like a webtoon style comic, are very different mediums, and they are created for a very specific medium. So it takes a lot of work for them to bring that to the screen. So let's see in the credits. I do want to mention we have Annie Cheng as the production associate manager for digital, Tim Smith III as senior manager for digital, and Stacy Zucker as a designer. Kayla O'Connell as the editor, and editor in chief, of course, CB Sobolski. So I I wonder if any of these names are the ones that are kind of rearranging stuff. But as you can see here, you can kind of tell where the bones are of the digital comic if you really put kind of like put your eye to it, right? Those couple of first few panels, you can tell they kind of feed off of each other. Then you bring in Captain Marvel, and you see Natasha and Bucky. Uh, but yeah, I think it's really cool. Like it's a really good job of just bringing these short stories to the forefront like this. So we also have a Spider-Man story. I don't know which one is the new story because I haven't read all the original stuff, but I think this will be a nice chance to kind of dive into some of this stuff. Of course, Spider-Man would have a Black Cat. I mean, would team up with Black Cat when it comes to a cat story. So I don't know. This seems like a really interesting endeavor for those that don't want to get the Marvel Unlimited access. You can always pick this up and actually read some of those stories. I'm also not very familiar with the creator, but their work looks awesome. I really like the art. It has a very cool style, very stylized, very reminiscent to some of the manga leanings that I really enjoy. But of course, the coloring and everything really changes the effect of everything that's happening on the page. So Marvel dropped some really cool covers for this as well. You'll see those at the end of the video, so stay tuned for that. Bye. Hello everyone, Daniel here from the Next Issue Podcast. On today's video, I'll be doing a preview for Kid Venom Origins #1. This is a new book from Marvel Comics. Let's take a look at the creative team before we get into this book. This book is written and with art by Taigami, with colors by Guru FX, letters by Glenn Cowles, and a translation by Aki Yanagi. Um, so this is another very interesting project from Marvel. Um, you probably have already seen it or will see the Marvel Meow book, which was a translation or an adaptation of the Marvel Unlimited series into the page here. So let's take a look at what we have on this one. This is Kid Venom for the first time collected in one issue, the 4 full parts of Kid Venom from the death of the Venomverse. So in Marvel, instead of adapting something from the Unlimited universe, they actually have collected all these stories from the death of the Venomverse. So it's kind of cool that they're putting it all together. In case you missed out on that, we also have some behind the scenes content never seen before, including original artwork that brought Taigami over to Marvel, plus a glimpse of what the future might hold for Kid Venom. So I will say this: the only thing I was not a big fan of was uh, the logo for the outside of Kid Venom. I didn't really, I don't know. I don't really like it. There's actually a cooler logo in the back that we'll see from the preview. So let's take a look at some of this preview right here. Um, I like the story, like just from these opening pages of how dynamic this is, how different this world is, and the idea that the Venomverse covered a lot of different genres in here. I'm really on board. I'm not familiar with Taigami and their work, but this looks pretty freaking cool. Always cool to see this. Looks like a wolf or some kind of panther animal carnage. So I like that already. And of course, we have Kid Venom show up. And as you can see here, I just like this logo a lot better here at the bottom. Maybe that's kind of what made me dislike the other one. Kid Venom looks like she's going to be kind of a badass. So I'm very excited. There's some really cool covers for this as well. So stay tuned for that at the end of the video. But yeah, I'm kind of on board for this. I wasn't able to read this during the death of the Venomverse, so it's kind of cool for Marvel to put this together. I like that Marvel is doing some stuff like that where, they either take a story from their Unlimited, or maybe they take a story or like from the back matter of some other issues, because sometimes people don't read those. Sometimes people just kind of leave that to later, and then this is kind of the perfect place to do that. Also, it hints at Marvel having confidence enough that they'll want to bring this character into maybe his own series or his own book later in the future. So that'll be real cool. Of course, amazing covers at the end of the video. Stay tuned for those. But if you have read Kid Venom Origins, let me know what you thought about the book down in the comments. As always, thank you for watching, everyone. Remember to share, like, subscribe, hit the bell so when we go live, that is most Saturdays, 10 a.m. Central Standard Time. Stay tuned. We have more comic reviews, trailer reactions, TV recaps, all that fun stuff here in the channel. Thanks for watching, everyone. Bye-bye.